For the second summer in a row, kids in Durham will not be able to enjoy some of the city's biggest parks. Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Megan Glova. It's been 2.5 years since Duke researchers found alarmingly high levels of lead in the soil there. WRAL Investigates Sarah Krueger joins us now with more details. Sarah, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So when exactly will these parks reopen? Do we know that yet?
Oh, that is the question. Unfortunately, based on everything that I've heard from the officials that I talked to, probably realistically, we are looking at years more until we're at any kind of a full reopening. So testing is currently going on, still doing very extensive testing in the soil at these 5 parks. And that is expected to go through probably the end of the year. And that is just the data collection phase. And then, of course, after data collection, there are going to be many other steps. So it has been a long road already. It was 2022 when this lead was discovered. And it seems that it is still a long road ahead of us as well.
Oh, wow. And what exactly, if we're talking about years to go still, what's the price tag on this project? I can't imagine it's cheap.
Gosh, yeah. So, a lot of things to consider there. There is an early estimate that the state's Department of Environmental Quality has given on one option to remediate the lead in the soil at these parks. And that early estimate was $10.5 million for all 5 parks. But just looking at precedent that's now been set in other places, like Greensboro, for example, has one single, actually relatively small park that has a similar issue. And just to fix that one park with one of the cheaper options is $12 million or just over $12 million. So that $10.5 million estimate for 5 parks, seems way too low. I did reach out to the Department of Environmental Quality asking, hey, is that really an accurate estimate given, for example, this situation in Greensboro? And, they said something about how they'll continue to test and, we'll develop more estimates along the line. But, that would certainly suggest that it is too low.
Okay. And as far as reopening goes, do we know if this is going to happen one at a time, all at once, or is it too soon to tell since none have even reopened yet?
Yeah, I think it's still too soon to tell. So I guess, some important things to note, like the entire parks aren't closed entirely, but I think, for those of us who live in Durham, myself included as a mom of 2 kids who frequent, parks in the city very often, these parks are effectively closed. I'm not going to any of these parks. If you drive by, they're not inviting. They're fenced off.
No.
Maybe like a place here or there is open within them. Like Lion Park, for example. I was there recently actually for work doing an interview with someone in the picnic shelter. So like the picnic shelter is open, but the playground's closed. All the playgrounds at these 5 parks are closed. So it's definitely just going to be a really long road. And in terms of fixing them, I would imagine just given the cost, like they're probably going to do these one by one. And all of that, though, all those decisions still months or years away as we are still in this data collection phase.
Okay. And can you give us some background on how all of this is being funded, kind of jumping back to the price tag there?
Yeah, so City Council has already set aside $5 million to help fix these parks. And the Durham Parks and Recreation Director, Wade Walcott, told me he currently has a request in for $7 million more in funding. And, he doesn't have all the data yet, so he doesn't know exactly what might be needed. But he just wanted to put in these requests so that there is a pot that's building, just knowing that this is going to be really expensive and, trying to ask for it in chunks is going to hopefully be more manageable. It's also possible that there could be some state or federal funds available. I talked to the mayor of Durham for this story, and for my subsequent story, I have 2 stories, coming up on this very issue, looking at different aspects of it. And one thing that the mayor stressed is that they're going to be looking at all funding options on the table, trying to get as much help as possible to pay for what is very likely going to be an expensive fix. And the city council likely will be the ultimate deciders of what route to go in terms of what kind of remediation, because there are different options. So there's this option called cap and cover, which is what they did in the Greensboro situation that I'm mentioning. And that is the cheaper option, where it's basically like you put a cap over the soil, the contaminated soil, which could be like a foot, I think it is, of, another kind of soil, clean soil.
Yeah.
And so that's called cap and cover. Or there's another option that is full remediation, which would be literally removing all of the soil and taking it somewhere else. And that's a lot more expensive. And gosh, yeah, these parks are just, some of the major parks in Durham. It's just really, really sad to see, and really sad that they've been so inaccessible for so long, now heading into a second summer of not being able to use them. And just another point on this is many of these parks that are impacted in Durham are in historically Black neighborhoods, historically underserved neighborhoods. These are parks that were years and years ago used as trash dumps, essentially incinerator sites by the city. So, that this was at a time when I guess people didn't realize, hey, not the best idea to shut down a dump and then put a kids' play area on top of it. But that's what happened here. And then it took Duke researchers, a Duke graduate student, just doing her master's project, her thesis, testing the soil, to realize, hey, these are really high lead levels, far beyond what the EPA says is safe.
Right. And, the state's Department of Environmental Quality, they're testing the soil in the parks, of course. But I also saw in your story that they're publishing the data online as they go. Have you seen anything interesting shared from them so far, or maybe any improvement indicated?
Yeah. So, there's been, so much testing. So it started off with the Duke student. And the Duke student and her professor elevated the issue to the city and said, hey, look what we found. I think you all would want to know about this. And then the city basically said, okay, well, thanks, but we can't take your word for it. So they hired their own contractor to do testing, and they did testing. And then now the third round of testing is with the state, with the DEQ, and just going through and doing, I can't imagine how meticulous it would have to be as thorough as, as they are being in terms of what they're posting online. But if anything, the state's results have resulted in more and more fencing off of the parks. Gradually, the parks are becoming more and more inaccessible as they discover more pockets of lead or more troubling levels. And also the EPA changed their standards on levels of lead, what was acceptable and what was not. So that also resulted in more fencing. So it has just been this very long and big web that just keeps getting more and more tangled. And yeah, just really unfortunate. It's just, our parks are such a precious resource and so important, especially in the summertime for kids. So very sad that they are not all accessible right now.
I want to end with just the parent perspective on this. You mentioned that you, as a parent yourself, you're kind of steering clear of these parks for now. But have you talked to any other parents about this? Are they happy that these steps are being taken, or more frustrated that it's taking so long?
Yeah, so many feelings. So I think, for example, the parents who have older kids and who see all these results and think, gosh, I took my kids to those parks every day while they were growing up.
Yeah.
And now know that they were playing in lead-infested soil, and lead can be so harmful neurologically to children. So that's hard to grapple with. But then in terms of the parents who have young park-age kids now, I spoke with several for my story. I went out to Duke Park, which is one of the parks that is still open and does not have any levels of lead that are known. Wonderful park, and parents there, we're grateful that there are many parks in the city of Durham. There are more than 60 parks, but just frustrated because it has been so long, and they really want to see this as a very high priority, and they don't necessarily feel like it's being treated that way. Because as I mentioned, it's been since 2022 that the lead was found, still just fenced off completely. There's keep out warning signs. It's just very strange to see a park look like such an off limits, hazardous place. It's just not what we like to see, not what we're used to. So parents are frustrated. They definitely want a fix that is going to be safe. I mean, I think every parent, we all want our kids to be safe first and foremost. But yeah, they definitely hope that we can pick up the pace here in the city a little bit and get this fixed soon.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll see some improvement in the months or if not years to come. We appreciate it, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. You can find more podcasts from WRAL News at WRAL.com. Search podcast. From sports to true crime, there are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained. I'm Megan Glova. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.